Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Recording this here on a Wednesday. The Browns practicing in Carolina. Mary Kay was down there. Dan Labbe with Mary Kay, Cabot, Ashley Bastock. We're going to let Mary Kay kind of fill us in on what happened today. We're going to try and figure out what it all meant. And Mary Kay, let's just start with the guy everybody wants to talk about, and that is Shedeur Sanders. And I think people came in today with the expectation that and they did this because we didn't know how Kevin was going to dole out playing time. I mean, we even talked about it a little bit on our last pod that maybe we'd finally get to see him take some first team reps because he's supposed to start this game. Well, as it turns out, Kevin Stefanski made it pretty clear today that there aren't going to be many starters playing on Friday night. Shedeur obviously is going to start. He did confirm that. You broke that story the other day before anyone else had it, obviously. But he's going to be playing with mostly backups. And so that meant today, just following along from afar, it felt like more of the same with the handling of Shedeur Sanders. I guess let's just start there. Is it fair to characterize this practice as just kind of more of the same? Did they put more on his plate, or is this kind of more of what we've seen through the first few weeks of camp?
It was really more of what we've seen through the first few weeks of camp. There's no question about that. It wasn't like he's all of a sudden been promoted and now he's the one throwing to Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman. That's not happening. Those two guys are not playing in the game, and most of the backup offensive line will be in the game. Now, when Kevin Stefanski said, by and large, we'll rest our starters, he was talking about the offensive line on that particular quote, and it kind of got put out there that he was basically talking about everybody. And I guess in the final analysis, it might turn out that way because I don't think Miles is going to play. I don't think Denzel is going to play. I don't think the star players are going to play. So for all intents and purposes, it really isn't going to be the football team that you're going to see on opening day. But Shedeur Sanders, it was more of the same. He worked with the backups, and I think they are viewing this start on Friday night as an opportunity to show us what you got, Shedeur. I mean, it is a prime opportunity for them to throw him into the fire and let him cook and see what he can do. And the more that I think about it, the more I think it's a great chance for him to show that when the lights come on, he can be a gamer. Now, the tricky part about it is the fact that he will be working against the Panthers' first team defense, at least for the first two series of the football game. Canales says he's talking about a couple series for those guys, 8 plays, 12 plays, whatever the case may be. After that, I think you'll get a little bit more of an accurate representation of Shedeur with some backups against some backups. And that's when perhaps maybe you will see him shine a little bit. So looking forward to seeing that when it's not one hand tied behind his back, so to speak. But yeah, this is a great opportunity for him to go out there, play fast, get in the zone. Because now I'm starting to hear from all of these quarterbacks that they're not getting to do that. They're not getting to get in that zone and in that rhythm that a quarterback likes to get into. This is his chance.
Yeah, you kind of just got to something that I was thinking too. Like, the nice thing about this for Shedeur is he's not only going to play 12 reps, right? He's going to play a lot. Now, whether that's a half, whether that's the whole game, who knows? I know Tyler Huntley is the other guy who could play in that game. But, you know, when you're a quarterback, you get 4 quarters of a game on Sundays, and you get 60 plays, 65 plays. And so when you go 3 and out the first series, there's a bunch of other series as well in that game. So we're going to get to see a more complete body of work from Shedeur Sanders in this than we would if he was only playing like a series or 2 series. So I think that's going to be good in that regard. But just Ashley, as you were kind of following along and we see how the reps are doled out and sort of who's going where. I mean, we were talking on Tuesday, like, well, maybe this could be Shedeur Sanders' opportunity to really truly make this a 4-man quarterback race. But if this practice is any indication, I still kind of feel like it's where it was before the Browns left for Carolina. It's kind of 3 guys and Shedeur Sanders, and maybe he can push his way in with a great preseason game. But I still feel like he's got a ways to go.
Yeah, I think the game is really what matters here. And look, we speculated about this yesterday because it's tough, I think, if you throw a quarterback in and he's not thrown passes to those first-string receivers and taken a snap from Ethan Posick. But if all those guys are resting, then really he has done those things with the guys who will be playing in the game. And of course, how they typically operate these joint practices is they essentially make the game itself kind of, you don't want to say pointless, but it doesn't have the same meaning because you're doing that work with your first string in a practice, which is a controlled setting, and you're still letting those guys get reps against, if you're the offense, like another defensive front and another defensive secondary. Like they're still getting that same important work, and basically everyone from players to coaches prefers it because it's more controlled. So it makes sense that you would want to let Joe Flacco get some snaps in today because you know you're not going to play him in that game. So it's I think going to be more of the same next week when they go against the Eagles, and that's why we've said with those practices in particular, they're so important to get a feel for where that battle stands. But, you know, they've left this open for some surprise. So if Shedeur really outperforms expectations on Friday, that's how you really, I think, make this a four-man race in their eyes. Obviously, people on the outside have been wanting to see more of him. The Browns haven't given him that kind of big opportunity yet, and now it's here. So what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, and I think too, you know, we've mentioned that, like, I've always believed with this regime, you know, we're going on to year 6 with these guys. And just the more and more we've been around it, the more and more we've seen, they really, I don't want to say they don't value performance in preseason games. It's part of it, but it's just so clear, like, what happens in preseason games kind of goes over here in this bucket. But what they really care about is joint practices, what happens in practices, all of that stuff. So I guess for me, I sort of temper expectations about exactly how much Shedeur can shake things up on Friday. But that said, Mary Kay, it is a situation where he's going to be out there for the world to see. If he goes, I don't know, 15 for 20, throws for, I don't know how many yards, throws like 2 touchdown passes, looks really sharp, then the entire NFL world is going to be saying, like, what's going on here if he's still only getting like 3rd and 4th string reps in practice. So that's where I think he could potentially put a little pressure on this coaching staff, put a little pressure on this team. But also, again, just based on going on 6 years with these guys, I'm not expecting a ton to get shaken up from what happens in this game.
No, and here's why. Everyone needs to remember these are preseason games. You are not getting game planned for. Nobody's trying to find your weaknesses. Nobody's trying to make you do something that you can't do very well at all. That's not what happens in these games. The defense will be trying to do some things that they need to work on to get ready for their season. They are not trying to beat Shedeur Sanders and make him look ineffective. That's not what's going on here. And that is why preseason, even the games, can be such a mirage. And you have to be so careful with what you think you're seeing and what you think you know. You have to go on your scouting. You have to go on your body of work. You have to go on everything, what goes on in the meeting rooms. Because look, Dorian Thompson-Robinson was absolutely wonderful in preseason. He was really, really good in preseason. So much so that he became either the backup or tied for backup the past couple of years. So, you know, these are things that you have to be a little bit leery of, that you just can't get overly excited about what you see in these games. Even if he goes out there and goes 17 of 19 with 2 touchdown passes, doesn't mean he's going to do that in Baltimore in week 2, right? I mean, it just doesn't work that way. You have to take these for what they are. They're basically a glorified practice. The only difference is that the quarterback can get hit and the quarterback can get sacked. So that's definitely something that's different in these games. But other than that, you just can't put too much emphasis on these football games, and people are going to do that. And everyone needs to calm down. No matter what happens in this game on Friday night, it doesn't mean as nearly as much as people think it does.
Yeah, and once again, it just goes back to what we've been saying all camp. Like, it's not even necessarily what we think, it's what we're seeing. And it's what the Browns are showing us every day with sort of where they're at with Shedeur Sanders, wanting to bring him along slowly, And you've got to imagine that Kevin Stefanski and Tommy Rees are going to try to keep things simple. They're going to try and keep things where he can go out there and make some easy throws. And they're going to try to do some things to make him look good. And look, I hope he does look good. I'm very interested to see what Shedeur Sanders looks like. I'm very interested to see if he can force their hand a little bit to maybe want to put a little more on his plate when we come back. But Ashley, I think that's going to be hard because you got one practice in Berea, and then it's off to Philly for joint practices, and that just makes it really complicated, even if Shedeur does play well.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. We're through that kind of, I mean, all of training camp is kind of the dog days, but you're through that really dog days part of training camp where they were having 4 practices in a row, 3 practices in a row. We had something like 10 practices over 12 days, I want to say, or 13 days. It was not that long. And now it's broken up by these preseason games, broken up by these joint practices. And the joint practices, there's going to be fewer reps to go around. It's why we've kind of talked about this point of camp running out of time to really change things with this quarterback battle and really, in my mind, overtake Joe Flacco, who seems to be the front runner for many reasons at this point. So I am curious. I got asked about that on the radio today, what I thought we would see from them. I think, I would expect a lot of short, easy completions, some handoffs, that sort of thing, and letting him have the chance to maybe make some bigger throws because he has shown off his accuracy. But I think you get those shorter plays in early for really any quarterback, but especially rookies, to help them build up some confidence. I think we saw them do that with DTR even a little bit when the offense was different. So that's kind of what I'm expecting going into this.
All right, let's spend a little bit of time on Joe Flacco as well, because he talked today. Mary Kay, you put up a post today off of what Joe Flacco had to say and how he made it pretty clear, like he's not here. I think you said in your video today, he's not here to just pad the college fund for the kids. So one of the things when we talk about preseason games, one of the really important things to watch with this group is in a game like this, where they are going to sit out some starters, it's always worth noting which guys are on that list and kind of what it might mean, right? Like if somebody is sitting out and it's not injury related from this first game, there's probably a pretty good chance that they're going to be good to go. They're going to make that 53-man roster. Not that was ever a question with Joe, but I do think it's interesting that the Browns are kind of saying they don't need to see more Joe Flacco. This sort of all points to what you've been talking about here for a little while, that it just feels like Joe's got the momentum right now. And it feels like this job, when we get to Philly, maybe he can really take a hold of this thing and we might leave Philadelphia and that we could just be saying, yep, Joe's the guy.
Yeah, I think that the way that I see this right now, I think that the Browns held out some hope that Kenny Pickett could get back and continue to make this a really heated 2-man competition. But I don't really know if Kenny is going to be ready for that kind of work in Philadelphia. Because if he tries to take off running, or if he tries to use his keeper skills and RPO skills and all of that mobility, then he runs the risk of tweaking that hamstring again. And that's just not going to be good for anyone. So at this point in my mind, I know the Browns aren't there yet, but I think Joe is closing in on the job. And I sort of wrote it that way today. And when I asked Joe about how much he does want to play, he said he wants to show I can do this and you should have confidence in me. I thought that was a very important quote from Joe. That's what he's trying to say. Hey, look at me, you guys. I've got this. And he's human. Even though he's been doing this now, this is his 18th season, he still wants them to pick him. And he wants them to pick him sooner than later. And I do think that, he's ready to say, let's wrap this thing up and I want it to be me. And I just don't know how Kenny's going to come through and win this job if he can't get back out there full go soon. And he already told us that it was going to take him a few weeks after he got back to continue to manage the hamstring. I think he's set back too far as it is right now. He's already missed, I think it's 7 11 on 11 days, 7 full days where he just could not do 11 on 11s, including a week where he just wasn't even practicing. So I just think I think the sand has gone through the hourglass for him. And I just think it's Joe's job to lose right now.
And, it's when Joe signed here, it was something I thought about. Like, Joe is 40 years old. He loves playing football. Last year he ended up having to sign with Indianapolis, a situation where he knew he was going to be backing up a rookie in Anthony Richardson. But then, of course, got opportunities because Anthony Richardson was dealing with injuries, tapping out of games because he was tired, all of that stuff. So Joe got lots of opportunity there. But Ashley, it just never felt like, if you're 40 years old and you look like Joe Flacco looks like he can play till he's 70 if he wants to. You're not signing here to sit on the bench. You're not signing here to be a backup. Now that maybe it plays out that way, but right now with kind of the way this opportunity is right there in front of him, I'd be really surprised if he let this thing slip away.
Yeah, I mean, it just felt like from the spring onward that Joe was going to do whatever it took to win this starting job. And I remember going back to that Kenny quote from the spring about sometimes like feeling like it can take about 2 years in a system to feel like you truly knew it. And my first reaction was, well, not for Joe Flacco, and not in this offense, and not with Kevin Stefanski. Like, to me, I've just kind of always been leaning towards Joe since he got here for these reasons in terms of who I thought was most likely to pull away. I really thought he was going to come in, and if he stayed healthy, force their hand. I think with Joe, always, and we all know this, you have to be wary of the turnovers and the interceptions he might throw, but he's not going to do that, I don't think, at this stage. Like, it's just not happening. We'll see when they get into actual games if those gunslinger tendencies once again kind of come back to bite him. And I think maybe that's when the change in theory would happen. But it's just always felt like Joe Flacco's coming in here to win this job, fully motivated to do so. He knew he was not coming in here with his goal of just mentoring a young quarterback room. We know how he feels about all of that. So I'm not surprised at all to hear this from him this week.
Okay, so Mary Kay, obviously you were down there. I know the sight lines weren't always great where they had you guys at practice, but me and Ashley weren't there. So what can you tell us? What stood out? What did you feel was noteworthy today?
Okay, well, let me first describe sort of what went down. So Kenny Pickett and Dylan Gabriel were limited to 7-on-7s only. And Joe Flacco, Shedeur Sanders, and to a very small extent, Tyler Huntley took the 11-on-11s. And Tyler only got a few, like he got 1 rep or 2 reps when they were in their 2 11-on-11 periods, because lo and behold, he's going to be playing on Friday night. So in 7-on-7s, the first 7-on-7 period, Shedeur went 1 for 3. You don't want to go 1 for 3 in 7-on-7. So that's, I think, something to kind of keep an eye on. And maybe he was a little bit hyped up at the beginning. He threw too high to Canella on his first pass. Then he completed a short right out to Luke Floria. And then he was flushed right, and he threw the ball away on his last snap in that little 7-on-7 period. And Dylan Gabriel actually did a really nice job in that 7-on-7 period, going 4 of 5 with 1 drop by Thrash on a left out. So he had a better time of it in there than Shedeur did in the 7-on-7s. And Kenny Pickett went 3 for 4 in that first 7-on-7 period. Again, you should go 3 for 4 or 4 for 4 in your 7-on-7s. And that's exactly what Joe did. Joe actually went 3 for 4 in his 7-on-7 period there. But then when they moved into the 11-on-11 period, I would say that the starting offense got the best of the Panthers' starting defense. Now, the 2s and the 3s didn't necessarily win, but I thought the 1s won. And I thought that it was that way on defense, too, for what I was able to catch sight of over there on the other field. Again, hard for us to see a whole lot, especially because we were standing at the very far end of the field. Offense was way down at the far end. And a lot of times the players were behind the drill. So we were trying to look through, legs and next to under armpits and stuff like that. So it was really challenging to try to see exactly what was going on there. But I will say in general, I thought that Jerry Jeudy had, for the most part, he had a nice day. He did have one deep out from Joe that was broken up. There was a flag on that play too, but those two kind of are starting to heat up. In the first 11-on-11 session, Joe hit a deep cross to Jerry, and that was a really nice play. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of those. I'm going to say this right now because I think this is important. I think it's time to let Joe cook. I wrote this in the story that I wrote today. It's time, okay? Joe needs to get good with these guys. He needs to get his chemistry down with the starting offense. It's time to just let him do that. I know they want to keep this thing going. I really know that they do. Joe is getting most of now the first team reps. Shedeur did not get 11-on-11s with the starters. So when the starters were out there in 11-on-11s, Joe was the guy. That's important. There were some mixed results, but for the most part, Joe did a fairly nice job with that. One went off of David Njoku's hands in the red zone. Jerry, he threw a touchdown pass to Jerry in the end zone in the 11-on-11s. They need work is what I'm trying to say here. They need work together. They really do. Joe needs to rekindle the magic with David Njoku. Those guys need time on task together. Joe needs time on task with Harold Fannin. You can't go out there and get 3 and 4 reps and think that you're going to get in the kind of rhythm that you're going to need to be in on September 7th. So I, for one, hope that in Philadelphia, they really, really let Joe prepare as though he's the starter. Give him all the first team reps. Maybe if Kenny's ready for an 11-on-11, give him a few reps here and there just to see what he can do. But for the most part, you got to let Joe get ready to play, or you're tying his hands for the opener. It's time to see what this offense can really look like. And dividing it up like this anymore just is not making sense to me.
Ashley, what kind of stood out for you in that recap? I mean, for me, I kind of hearing that the offense looked good against that Carolina defense. I like hearing that. I expect the Browns defense to perform well against that Carolina offense. I'm glad that held. But hearing that the offense potentially won against that Carolina defense, I think that's a good thing. What kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the most overall intriguing thing without having watched it myself. But I kind of just want to take a step. Like, I'm 100% with Mary Kay, and I think that's the issue with extending this competition longer than it needs to be extended to, and that's what has worried me about them having 4 quarterbacks and worried me about them being so committed to allowing themselves to be surprised. That's good, but at some point you have to get ready for football games, like meaningful football games that are going to be here in a handful of weeks at this point. So I'm glad it looked good, because I think overall in joint practices, those are the kind of things you can glean that end up being meaningful, right? We talk about in Philly in 2023, the way that Eagles offensive line talked about the Browns defensive line and that defense. And what we saw, we had an inkling like, okay, this might be legit. And it was. And 2 years prior the year before that in 2022, when the Eagles pass catchers were just getting whatever they wanted, we had a feeling the secondary might be in trouble. So it's a small positive sign. And like, those are overarching things I think are the important things to come out of these practices. But at some point, like 4 QBs is just too many. And again, the old saying is if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. So if you have 4 quarterbacks, then what does that actually mean for your football team? Sometimes less is more. And I think we're getting to that point where that is starting to be the case. So I understand Joe's frustration in all of this. And I think Mary Kay's right on the money there it's about that time. It's about that time. You got to get these guys some reps so they can get that chemistry down.
Well, one interesting thing, you guys, when I looked out onto the field, and I made this point today when I went on a television show, I looked out there and there were 6 Browns quarterbacks on the field at the same time, including Deshaun Watson. And my little joke was, the old saying, if you have 6 quarterbacks, you don't have one. So 6 quarterbacks on the active roster right now. But that's the situation. And it's pretty bizarre, but here we are.
It's Deshaun Watson just looming. Listen, we are in a week where Shedeur Sanders is about to start a preseason game that nobody thought he would be starting because these guys have hamstring injuries. So just never say never. As long as Four is hanging around and he's on that active pup list, just remember, never say never when it comes to this football team. That's a whole other pod. Okay, Mary Kay has a bunch of stories up already at cleveland.com/Browns. Check those out. She'll have more coming over the next day or two. So head there to read those and become a Football Insider subscriber. It's the blue banner at the top of the page. Our Instagram is Orange and Brown Talk. Our Twitter is Orange Brown Talk. And find us on YouTube, Cleveland Browns, on cleveland.com. For Mary Kay and Ashley, I'm Dan. Thanks for listening, everybody.